The second question is the worship instinct is really, in fact, the fear of death. There's, is there? I don't see the reason why we should believe this. Because there's a lot of people worshipping Allah Subhanahu wa Taala through the ibadah of jihad that don't look like they're very scared. And so people worship. There's a psychologist named Maslow who talked about, it was, I don't know how his theories have fared in the meantime, but they used to teach about him when I was in high school, I remember. He said that people have satisfaction levels, that when the most primary one is safety, after which there is food and clothing and sex, and then at the highest level of all, he placed religion. And so he didn't place it at this level. He says everyone will try to avoid death. And so religion is not that, but religion is something a little bit higher than this. It's not until these other needs have been met that people tend to think about it even. He says, we are frightened of dying, therefore religion was invented to explain what would happen after death, and to be a comfort zone. Well, that's one possible explanation, but equally logical and equally positable and equally acceptable and equally explanative is that there is a wise creator who revealed religion to us for our benefit. أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ. Verily, by the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. And so people do a lot of things. The Freudian model of man is a hydraulic model, that you give a push here and the complex flops out there because of sort of a hydraulic pressure. But yet we find people doing a lot of things that take a great deal more than merely reacting to something. We find Benvenuto Cellini producing masterpieces of bronze casting of statues, for example, in the Renaissance. But no one else had the crust to try to accomplish. We find people scaling Mount Everest. We find people achieving extraordinary accomplishments, not in reaction to something, but initiate at their own initiative. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan rasulullah, ashhadu anna rasulullah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. So what there is not that man is just a body or a body with a mind, but a man possesses a body and a mind and a soul, and all of these have their needs. And religion joins between all of these. Religion joins between all of these. It is just used to control the masses and make them morally responsible. Often being morally responsible is against what the masses want. Morally responsible is against what the masses want. There are people that oppose the masses because of their own sense of moral responsibility. And so the ends of something, the uses for which, even if religion makes a more stable society, you say it was invented to make a more stable society. Lots of experiments have been made trying to invent a religion. Communism, for example. It didn't convince anybody. 100 years later, it's a failed experiment. They tried to make work, the religion of people, and everybody sharing everything they had, and for a better society. They tried to make this a religion, and it didn't work because nobody accepted it. Nobody will accept an invented religion unless it has an authority. And so if it's invented, it wouldn't have any authority. So the argument that it's to make people morally responsible, makes societies more happier societies, and makes people happier people. But why should it be posited that it was invented by the society in the first place, or invented by the individual, as the first part of the question suggests? Neither of these. It could be equally, and it's equally intuitively plausible that it was placed there by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and bestowed by Allah in order to make both society and the individual prosper. It said, after all, we enjoy life. And so, in other words, people hypothesized a life after death because they enjoy life. It's not intuitively obvious either that people enjoy life. Hobbes certainly believed that, life was nasty, brutish, and short, and to use his own words. What life shows us, maybe a child could imagine that life is all a wonderful experience, but anybody who's lived knows that it's one series of rude awakenings after another, and that as one gets older, one finds it more problematic. For which reason many people find no point. They find it too hard. They commit suicide because it's just too difficult for them. So the fact that we enjoy life and we want it to continue on indefinitely is not an explanation for the truths of religion, because there's no evidence that people enjoy life, to that degree, that they would want it to continue. But rather, the prophets, alayhim as-salatu was-salam, brought an explanation that told people why they suffer and why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. And it seemed reasonable to people. People can discern between that which is true and that which is false, that which is beneficial and that which is more beneficial. And they found this explanation as something that they could accept. Who should understand the people and what is happening in this world and the next world more than the one who created it? And why should one assume that it created itself? This is an unreasonable presumption. And said, why are animals so afraid of death? They don't have the concept of Jannah and Jahannam. There's no reason to presume that that's the case either. Many animals go to their death. Many animals die. Remember when they die of despair even. They don't have a struggle to keep on. They're frightened of death. Remember, we used to catch silver salmon. Chinooks, they're called. And one would have to bring the net in very quickly, because when they saw that the net was around them and it was pursed up in the bottom, even though they had plenty of everything, they had plenty of water to breathe, and they had plenty of everything, they would die almost at once as soon as they found that there wasn't any escape from the net. There's no logical reason whatsoever why they should die, except they could see that there was no exit. And one would have to bring them in very, very quickly, otherwise the fish, when it dies, it sinks initially. It sinks to the bottom. And it would pull the boat down, pull it over, and sink to the bottom, a couple ton of dead fish in there. You'd have to bring the silvers very, very quickly over on board. So I looked at, you could say, well, they're just little machines, like the behaviorists. Or you could say that they intuit something, they intuit their end. But they died just like that without any, on the